do you feel? You're going to New England and you were drafted earlier than Tom Brady was drafted. Is that some added pressure for you?
No, I mean, the one thing I want to do is get in there and learn from him because he's been able to establish kind of the prototype for playing quarterback in the NFL and doing things on a daily basis. So I'm excited to kind of get around that.
With the 94th pick in the 2008 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots drafted a quarterback by the name of Kevin O'Connell. O'Connell never really saw much of the field in his playing career. In his entire NFL career, he only had 4 completions for 23 yards with no touchdowns or interceptions. He bounced around to a few different teams, but ultimately in 2012 he decided it was time to retire. But he wasn't ready to say goodbye to the NFL just yet. He dabbled a little bit in the NFL media shortly after his playing career, but I think for him he wanted more. In 2015, the Cleveland Browns hired him to be their quarterbacks coach, where he assisted quarterback Josh McCown to become the only player in team history to throw for 300 or more passing yards in 3 consecutive games. 2016, the San Francisco 49ers hired him to work on special projects, where he had a run-in with future Vikings GM Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. In 2017, he was hired by Washington to be their quarterbacks coach, where he had another run-in with a familiar face. He worked his way up, and eventually in 2019, he became the offensive coordinator. In 2020, Kevin decided to make a lateral move and become the offensive coordinator with the LA Rams. There he would learn under coach Sean McVay, and together they went on to win a Super Bowl title. On February 16th, 2022, the Minnesota Vikings hired Kevin O'Connell to be the 10th head coach of their franchise, just 3 days after he had won a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. He's now heading into year 3 of his head coaching career with the Vikings. So how have the first 2 years been? The 2 seasons have been some of the craziest Vikings seasons I have ever seen in my lifetime. The roller coaster ride that Kevin has dealt with in his first 2 seasons is nothing short of utter insanity. In this video, I'm going to be taking a deep dive into Kevin's first 2 seasons as a head coach and discussing how everything went right in season 1 and how everything went wrong in season 2. Then at the end of the video, I'm going to preview what's set for him in year 3 as well. Before I get into the video, I just want to quickly thank everyone for the support I've been getting. It's been amazing seeing all the love this channel has received in such short time. It's honestly been super motivating for me to provide everyone with the best possible content I can possibly provide. If you are enjoying the content you're seeing and want to help support the channel, please don't be afraid to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me out a ton. Okay, enough prologue. Let's dive into the first 2 head coaching seasons of Kevin O'Connell. Week 1 of year 1 might be the most normal week that Kevin O'Connell has had so far in his career. The Vikings were playing the Packers, and he got to reveal to the world how he intended to use Justin Jefferson. JJ had 184 yards and 2 touchdowns in the game. US Bank Stadium was absolutely electric. Kevin O'Connell rejoiced in having his first win as a head coach, and Vikings fans, we were feeling like nothing could stop us. And then Week 2 against the Eagles was a complete flip of everything going wrong. Offensive miscues, and the Eagles were able to easily pick apart our flawed defense. It didn't help that Kirk Cousins threw 3 interceptions, and nothing seemed to be favoring the Vikings at all that week. After losing this game, the Vikings were 1-1. So how would they respond? Week 3 against the Lions started off rough. The Lions scored 2 touchdowns to take an early 14-0 lead. The Vikings climbed back to tie it. Then the Lions pulled away again to take a 24-14 lead. Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings didn't panic and scored 14 unanswered points to win the game 28-24. This will be a common trend going forward for Kevin's Minnesota Vikings. Week 4, the Vikings traveled to London to play the cheating New Orleans Saints, where the game was very back and forth. Ultimately, the Vikings were up 3 with a few seconds left on the clock. Will Lutz came in to try and tie the game for the Saints, but double-doinked a 60-yard field goal, and the game was over. Now, for most teams, this would be the craziest way to win the game, but this is the 2022 Vikings team. This one might not even make the top 5. Week 5 against the Bears was a mostly one-sided game until it wasn't. The Vikings were up 21-3, and then you blinked, they were down 22-21. What just happened? The Vikings ended up putting together a masterful 17-play drive for 75 yards and a touchdown. Then shortly after, former Viking Amir Smith-Marset basically gave the ball back to us to seal the game 29-22. Another week, another heart attack victory. Week 6 against the Dolphins was a very normal victory for this team, it seemed. This was Teddy Bridgewater versus the Vikings, and Teddy put up some numbers against us, but the defense had some key turnovers, and ultimately the game was mostly one-sided. Tyreek Hill had a game against Ed Donatell's defense, though. Week 7 was the bye week. I'm only highlighting this because this was the last week of peace, basically, for Vikings fans this season. So let's take a moment and let's enjoy it.
Okay, time's up.
In Week 8, Kirk Cousins ran one of the fastest rushing touchdowns he's ever ran. The game started off hot, and then the offense became dry, and then the defense let the Cardinals back in the game. Shocker. The Cardinals actually took the lead 17-14, and then the Vikings decided it was time to play football again. They proceeded to score 14 unanswered points to make it 28-17. The Cardinals made it interesting again, making it 26-28. But the Vikings scored again, and the game was sealed. 34-26, Vikings win. They are now 6-1 on the season, and things are really looking good for the team. Week 9 marked the return to Washington for Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell, where their defense encountered one of the strangest plays you will ever see in an NFL game. This is the play where the referee ran a pick play to cause a touchdown to occur. In this game, the Vikings were down 7-17 going into the fourth quarter, and it felt like the magic was gone from the team. Then the Vikings scored 10 unanswered points to tie the game. Then Kirk led a 15-play drive that took 6 minutes off the clock and allowed Greg Joseph to kick a game-winning field goal. And then on the plane ride home, Kirk O'Chains was born. The vibes are up. Kevin O'Connell, in his first year as a head coach, is 7-1. He is off to one of the best starts ever as a first-year head coach, with some crazy last drive victories. Surely it can't get crazier, right?
Wrong.
Week 10 against Buffalo might be one of the greatest regular season games you will ever see in your life. I still think about this game a lot today. The game started pretty normal with the Vikings scoring on their opening drive and their offense running cold immediately after that. There does seem to be this trend where the Vikings have started strong, then can't seem to get anything going in the middle, but then find a way to win. This one is an extreme example of that. The Vikings, with less than 2 minutes left in the third quarter, were down 10-27, and then boom, Dalvin Cook scores an 81-yard touchdown, makes it 17-27. We go 13 plays, and CJ Ham scores a touchdown, and suddenly it's 23-27. You're thinking, there's no way. But we get the ball back again, and it isn't looking good. And then on 4th and 18, Kirk Cousins threw to Justin Jefferson, who came down with one of the most insane catches you will ever see. Incredible. I still cannot believe that Justin came down with that ball. But it's Justin Jefferson. He's gonna come down with that ball. Then we keep driving down the field, and it's looking like we're gonna score. We just can't seem to punch it in, and one of the plays, Kirk tries to sneak the ball in, and he's just short by basically 1 inch. Devastated. Kevin O'Connell is about to lose his second game of his head coaching career. All Josh Allen needs to do is... Wait, did he just fumble? The Vikings recovered in the end zone? It's a touchdown? What is happening? Are we about to win this game? Oh, Josh Allen led the team down to tie the game with a field goal. Of course. But we get to play Josh Allen in overtime. Advantage Vikings there. Vikings go down to score a field goal, and then Josh Allen is driving down the field. He then makes a massive mistake and throws the ball to Patrick Peterson, and the game is over. Vikings win. They are 8-1. Nothing can stop this train. We are absolutely rolling and just beat one of the best teams in an insane comeback on the road. Everything just seems to be going our way, and nothing could possibly go wrong.
Oh no, it all went wrong!
Week 11 happened. Honestly, I don't want to talk about it. This was bad. Kevin O'Connell's Vikings got their ass kicked by the Dallas Cowboys, 40-3. I don't know how much more there is to say, so let's just move on from this monstrosity. Week 12, luckily, was on a Thursday and didn't give much time for the Vikings to feel sad about the previous week, and they got a chance to totally redeem themselves.
And totally redeem yourself!
The game against New England was very back and forth throughout, but ultimately, Justin Jefferson made some incredible catches. And the offense did just enough to win the game this time when the defense almost let Mac Jones beat them. The game ended with a score of 33-26 and a victory turkey for your Vikings. Week 13 was one of the more normal games for Kevin O'Connell. The Jets weren't good and the Vikings were good. Seems easy, right? The Vikings led the game at half, 20-6. So it's looking like we're gonna have a decisive victory. Then Greg Zuerlein makes 3 more unanswered field goals to make it 20-15. Then Justin Jefferson scores a touchdown to make it 27-15. That should be game with 8 minutes 33 seconds left. Well, Mike White goes 75 yards in less than 2 minutes and scores a touchdown to make it 27-22. Mike White gets the ball back again and starts driving down the field. It's looking like they're going to score again. But then Cam Bynum got the game-sealing interception to close it out. Whew. Another week, another almost blown lead, but ultimately ended in victory for Kevin O'Connell. Week 14 in the second matchup against the Lions, who were much better than their 5-7 record would indicate. Both teams came out and it was pretty even at first, and then the Lions started to pull away. Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson put up insane numbers in this game. Kirk threw for 425 yards with 2 touchdowns, and JJ had 11 receptions for 223 yards. If you looked at that box score, you would think the Vikings won handedly, but they lost 23-34, since the defense could not stop anything that day. Losing to a division rival, not great, but at 10-3, you're 1 game away from locking up the division. And with the 4-8-1 Colts coming to town, it seemed like it was going to be a walk in the park.
Are you sure?
Week 15. Well, just when you think it couldn't get any crazier, I present to you this game. Let's fast forward. The Vikings are down 33-0 in the first half nonetheless. They could not score no matter what they were doing. Everything was going wrong and every fan was thinking this is just like Dallas, but worse because it's the Colts. And the Colts were awful that year. Personally, I remember what I was doing. I watch every Vikings game, and I needed to do some Christmas shopping, so I stopped watching and headed to the mall. Cool story. Then at the mall, I see KJ Osborne scores a touchdown. Alright, cool, whatever. It's halfway through the third quarter. Nice, we remembered how to score finally. Colts score a field goal. That makes it 36-7. At this point, the Colts have a 99.5% chance to win this game.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
CJ Ham scores a touchdown, makes it 14-36. Justin Jefferson scores a touchdown, it's 21-36. Adam Thielen scores a touchdown, 28-36. What's going on here? There's still a lot of time left in this game. Dalvin Cook houses a 64-yard pass to tie the game. What is happening right now? We were down 29 points late in the third quarter. How is it tied? This game eventually goes to overtime, and honestly, it was back and forth. Defenses were coming up big, but then Greg Joseph hit a game-winning 40-yard field goal to give the Vikings not only their 11th win, but sealing the division title for Kevin O'Connell in his first season. This game was historic. It was the greatest comeback in NFL history. Yes, history. I mean, just insane. The range of emotion felt in this game was a literal roller coaster, which fully sums up Kevin's tenure up to this point. These games, man. Yes, things have been going the Vikings' way, but the Vikings would like to have these games not be decided by one score or the last second.
I also like to live dangerously.
But they are winning, so it's a good problem to try and fix when things are ultimately going the Vikings' way. So with the division locked up, I'm gonna rapid fire the rest of these games leading up to the postseason. Week 16 against the Giants, a preview for the Wildcard playoff game. A TJ Hawkinson masterclass, having 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. He single-handedly brought people to fantasy football championships. This game was back and forth and was ultimately decided by, you guessed it, a one-score game. Greg Joseph made a game-winning field goal to give the Vikings their 12th win. Week 17 against the Packers. Whatever, they thought they would roll into the playoffs after crushing us, but then got stomped by Detroit a week later. 12-4, moving on. Week 18 just felt like the Vikings were playing a backyard scrimmage. The Bears didn't want to be there, and we basically weren't trying, and yet we still beat them 29-13. Nick Mullins did throw an interception because, of course he did. Probably did that just so he could unfortunately foreshadow the next season. But more on that later. Alright, it's time for Kevin O'Connell's first playoff game. The game was against a team he had just beaten a few weeks prior in the New York Giants. The Vikings, playing at their own stadium with a regular season record of 13-4, playing against the 9-7-1 Giants led by Daniel Jones. Ed Donatell's defense couldn't stop them no matter what he did. They could run it easily against us, they were throwing to people wide open. There was nothing the Vikings could do but just to try and outscore the Giants. And for the most part, they kept pace in the back and forth game. In the fourth quarter, the game was tied 24-all, and the Giants make it look so easy with a 12-play, 75-yard drive to score the go-ahead touchdown. The Vikings at the end of the game had a chance to go and tie it, but everyone knows the story. Kirk Cousins on fourth down throws it short of the sticks, and the game ends. Utter heartbreak for such a roller coaster season. It still feels weird a few years later thinking about this season. All of the crazy games that we had, for it to all just come down to an anticlimactic loss just felt so unsatisfying. So what do we make of year one of Kevin O'Connell as a head coach? Well, I think it's a promising start for such a young head coach. He wasn't perfect, but there's going to be some growing pains along the way, and he was learning while winning 13 games in his first season. Did he fall short and get bounced in the first round? Yes, but for a first-year head coach, this is a very promising start to such a young career. The expectations going into year two is to have some of the same success he did in year one. Unfortunately, in this roller coaster, things would go very differently in year two.
Right.
Let's do this.
Week 1 at home against Tampa Bay was just a strange vibe. This was the beginning of the Vikings turning the ball over narrative. Kirk Cousins threw an interception and lost 2 fumbles this game, and even with all that, they were insanely close to winning this game. Unfortunately, they ultimately came up short and lost 17-20, and the schedule doesn't get much easier either. Week 2 against Philly. Deja vu. We were playing pretty good, and then Philly just decided they were going to run that ball play after play after play and dominate our defensive front. As a team, they ran the ball 48 times for 259 yards and 3 touchdowns. A good amount of that production was from DeAndre Swift, but wow, we could not stop the run to save our lives. The Vikings actually crawled their way back into the game because, of course they did, but ultimately could not overcome the deficit, and they lost 28-34. Oh, and we fumbled the ball 4 times this game from 4 different players. This is going to be an unfortunate trend. Week 3 against the Chargers is one that I look back at and just simply can't believe we lost this game. We were the better team and found a way to lose. Keenan Allen had his way against the Vikings, where he caught 18 passes for 215 yards. Now that he's on the Bears, maybe he could just not do that kind of thing against us anymore.
That would be great.
Ultimately, this game was just pure chaos to end. The Vikings are down 24-28, and the Chargers, with less than 2 minutes from inside their own 30-yard line on 4th and 1, decide to go for it and fail to convert. The Vikings have the ball within the Chargers' 25-yard line with 1 minute and 47 seconds to play. And the Vikings are all out of sorts, and ultimately Kirk threw a very catchable pass to Hawkinson that was batted in the air and intercepted to lose the game. Just utter chaos. But what else is new in the O'Connell era so far? But the game ends in a turnover. Seems to be a theme of the season. Not sure if I like it. Good thing the Panthers are on our schedule next. Week 4 against the Panthers started red hot. The Vikings were driving down the field, and it looked like the Vikings of 2022. And then Kirk throws a 99-yard pick six.
Well, that's just great.
This was a fun Justin Jefferson versus Adam Thielen game. Ultimately, JJ had a great game with 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. DJ Wanham had a nice 51-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Yes! The Vikings actually got a touchdown from a turnover. Crazy concept when it's not happening to them, it would seem. They got the win 21-13 with their defense putting up a very good performance under new defensive coordinator Brian Flores. Defense starting to find their footing, and maybe it's not too late for the season to turn around. Who do we play next week? Week 5 against the Chiefs seemed to be the only game that Taylor Swift did not attend. Probably not true. I don't have time to go through all the games she attended or did not attend. I'm spending way too much time on this as it is. The Vikings played the Chiefs very close, but it never really felt like it was close. At the half, it was tied, and then in the third quarter, the Chiefs pulled away, scoring 14 unanswered points. Then the worst thing happened in the fourth quarter when Justin Jefferson unfortunately pulled his hamstring while running a route. This was a devastating loss for the Vikings here. Under Kevin O'Connell's first year, Justin Jefferson had won Offensive Player of the Year, and he was on pace to have just as good of a season as before. Then he went down here, and he would be out 7 weeks. This is the first really big test for Kevin. Little did he know he would be tested even more down the road. The Vikings would end up losing to the Chiefs here 27-20, but everyone felt like they could have won if it weren't for some calls that just didn't go their way. Either way, the season started at 1-4, and the Vikings just lost their best player in JJ. Luckily, the Vikings get the honor of playing against the Bears next week.
I like those odds.
Week 6, you could just tell the offense feels a little bit lost without their best player in Justin Jefferson. Against the Bears, they're trying to get everything figured out and did just enough to win this week. Their defense had kept them in the game, and their offense, although did not do much, it did enough this time. But most of the credit for this win should be going to Brian Flores' defense. The Vikings would go on to beat their division rival on the road 19-13 thanks to the power of Creed. Yes, Kirk Cousins after the game basically said that the band Creed got the team fired up to get the victory. What a time. The Vikings are 2-4 and have a mountain to climb, and the 5-1 49ers are coming to town. Well, this should be fun. Week 7 was a fun one. The Vikings were heavy underdogs, and Kirk Cousins put on one of his best games in purple on Monday Night Football and dominated. He had 378 yards with 2 touchdowns, and of course he threw an interception. This was Jordan Addison's breakout game with 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. This was a great game that things were finally starting to click. The offense found some rhythm despite losing their best player, and the defense was finally gelling after seeming to now know the scheme pretty well. Now sitting at 3-4 after beating one of the best teams, there's a real possibility we go on a run here. And if this team stays healthy, we are going to be dangerous. Week 8 against the Packers was the turning point of the season. This is the beginning of the end. Coming off such a high, beating the future NFC champion 49ers, now the Vikings get to be truly tested against a division rival on the road. Kirk Cousins was playing like a man who wanted to get paid roughly $180 million or whatever. He threw for 274 yards and 2 touchdowns before he unfortunately went down with the Achilles injury. So Justin goes down, and that's the worst thing at the time. Kirk goes down basically means the season is over. We have our best playmaker down already, and now you're losing the guy who was playing at an MVP level. This right here is Kevin O'Connell's biggest test as a head coach. Oh, the Vikings won this game 24-10. Like, one of the easiest wins you'll ever see. And yet, this was the most depressed I could have ever felt after beating the Packers to get back to 500. We climbed all the way back from 1-4 to get back to 4-4. But when Kirk went down, it felt like it was all for naught. which I suppose in the end we were right, but there was so much adventure left to this year's story. Week 9 had so much insanity to it. First of all, the Vikings that week had just traded for a quarterback named Josh Dobbs. He literally suited up in case something went wrong with Jaren Hall during the game. And, well, on the second drive, Hall suffered a concussion. Not kidding. A guy that doesn't even know the names of his receivers is now expected to go and throw the ball to them. What could possibly go wrong? Well, at first, it was everything that could go wrong was going wrong. Dobbs started out his first drive with a safety, and then his next one fumbled the ball. Then he had an impressive drive to score a touchdown, then followed that up by fumbling again. So it seemed like the game wasn't going to go our way. The Falcons that day just seemed to have us figured out. But then, Dobbs ran the ball and he ran it real good. Dobbs in the second half was playing like he'd been on our team the whole season. It was insane. Kevin O'Connell coached probably his most impressive game to date. He was using coded language to Dobbs so he could understand what to do for every single play. That is insane. This is the game I look back at and think the Vikings have a damn good coach because he was able to get a 31-28 victory over an NFL team with a quarterback that didn't know the names of his teammates, let alone the plays in the playbook. A true masterclass coaching performance. Week 10 was more of the same with Dobbs. He was getting to know Kevin's playbook, and he was learning some of the names of his teammates. He was starting to gel a bit more with everything. The Vikings basically throughout the entire game dominated the Saints on the road, putting up 24 points in the first half, which that ended up being just enough to win the game. They ended up winning 27-19. Slightly concerning, the offense disappeared in the second half, but that's okay. We got another win without our starting quarterback. We're slated to have some easy games coming up, and then headed into the bye with Dobbs learning the whole playbook. And then we can see what happens from there. At 6-4, we are thinking playoffs for sure at this point. Week 11 against the Broncos was the one that slipped away from us. Dobbs, he wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. This game was the first sighting of him being human, and it was kind of a weird vibe. Ultimately, he had a nice run in the game and led a drive to put the team ahead 20-15. And then Mr. Unlimited himself, Russell Wilson, drove down the field and got the Broncos the victory in a game-winning touchdown drive. Well, that was weird, but it's just one loss. At 6-5, we're still in the hunt, and we get the brutal Bears at home next week. We got this, right?
No, not this time.
Week 12 against the Bears, Josh Dobbs threw 4 interceptions, and yet somehow, someway, the Vikings still had a chance in this game. The defense kept the Vikings in the game. Chicago was up 9-3, and even though he'd been struggling all game, Dobbs had a nice drive that capped off with a TJ Hawkinson go-ahead touchdown. Vikings are up 10-9. All we need to do is stop. And are you kidding me? We let Justin Fields go 10 plays for 66 yards while taking the clock nearly all the way down? Insane. The Bears kicked a field goal and the Vikings lose 12-10. Alright, so now the Vikings are 6-6, when they really should be 8-4. Well, they aren't. So, time to push on. Week 13, bye week. Big storyline onward. Who's going to be the quarterback? Dobbs threw 4 picks in his last game. Is he going to get another shot? Justin Jefferson is slated to come back. Can he spark the offense? Well, boy, stay tuned. Week 14 might be the worst Vikings game I have ever watched in my life. I think I would rather watch paint dry than this game again. There was just nothing to it. The interesting things that happened were all bad. Justin Jefferson had left the game because Dobbs threw a pass that JJ was going to be vulnerable trying to catch, and he wound up in the hospital. Dobbs was eventually replaced with Mullins, where he came in and was much better at running the offense that Kevin had. Mullins led the team down and got them in position to score the eventual game-winning field goal. The Vikings won 3-0. Yes, 3-0. Just a brutal game. I need to move on from my sanity. The Vikings are 7-6, and the stage is set for them to control their own destiny. If they win their next 4 games, they are in the playoffs. Well, sometimes things just don't work out. Week 15 against the Bengals, Kevin O'Connell made an easy decision to start Nick Mullins this week, who at least wouldn't put his best player in danger when making throws. Breakout game for the rookie Jordan Addison and second-year running back Ty Chandler. Addison with 111 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Ty Chandler ran for 132 with a touchdown. Mullins became the 4th quarterback to start for the Vikings this season, which is not super ideal. That's a position typically you would want to keep consistent at. Nonetheless, he chucked the ball around for 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. This is going to be the typical game from Mullins. He can sling it, but he has a hard time taking care of the football. This game, Mullins got bailed out from a flag that would have been a pick six, and then making a throw that no starting quarterback would or should ever make. But it ends up being a touchdown. Ultimately, this game went to overtime, and there were some poor coaching calls made here. The Vikings attempted not 1, but 2 tush pushes back-to-back with Brandon Powell, the smallest guy trying to push our quarterback to a first down. Not a great call there by Kevin. The Bengals ended up kicking a winning field goal to win 27-24. Despite the Vikings being 7-7, there's still a very good chance we make the playoffs if we just win out. And well, Week 16, on Christmas Eve, Santa brought the Minnesota Vikings the division-leading Detroit Lions, who were having one of their best seasons in the history of their franchise at 10-4. Big stakes on the line here. If the Vikings win, they have a slight chance at winning the division, and if the Lions win, they win the division. Biggest regular season test for Kevin O'Connell. Unfortunately, Mullins decided it was a good time to throw 4 interceptions for some reason. Even with that, the Vikings did lead the game at some point, 21-17 in the third quarter, but the Lions fought back and eventually took care of business by winning 30-24 over the Vikings. New divisional winner, the Detroit Lions. Also to note, this is the game where Hawkinson went down because of a cheap shot by Kirby Joseph. Stay classy, Lions fans. Okay. So Kevin lost the division title this season, but with all the adversity and switching quarterbacks, this for any coach would be a mountain to climb, let alone a second-year head coach. And yet, they were still somehow competitive despite key turnovers in bad spots. They are still in position to win out and make the postseason, having started 4 different quarterbacks. And next week, the starter would change back once again. Going into week 17, there was a big question of who was going to be the starter, and Kevin O'Connell decided he would go with the rookie in this spot. Hindsight is 2020, but I do agree with Kevin's decision here. You have to see what kind of quarterback you have in the rookie, and if you can trust him possibly to be the guy of the future. Well, that wasn't great. The Packers and the Vikings were both 7-8, and basically whomever won the game was most likely going to the playoffs. Kirk Cousins even got the crowd going by blowing the Gallahorn, which, little did we know, that's the last thing he would do for the Vikings. It wasn't even close. Hall looked lost out there and could not get in rhythm. He threw an interception and lost a fumble before he was pulled after the first half. Something here I notice about Kevin is that he will never blame any of his players. He will always talk about how he needs to be better for his players and never throw anyone under the bus. This game was hard to watch, and rewatching it was not easy at all. The Packers destroyed us in our own building to basically surge them into the playoffs and dismantled any postseason chance that we had. We did still have a slim chance, but it's a very, very slim chance at this point, and it's almost better to lose to get the better draft pick. Week 18, the final week of Kevin O'Connell's second year as a head coach, was against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. And it went about just as well as you would think. Mullins threw for nearly 400 yards with 2 touchdowns and, get this, 2 interceptions. Justin Jefferson continued to dominate Detroit and put up 192 yards and a touchdown. But ultimately, the NFC North champs were too much for us. They beat us down 30-20, and finally, the season was over. So as a whole, Kevin O'Connell's first season was a prime example of everything that could go right went right, and then in his second season was a prime example of everything that could go wrong went wrong. So with these two extremes, what can we expect from Kevin O'Connell O'Connell in year 3. Year 3 for Kevin is a big one because there is a big question of who the quarterback is going to be with Kirk Cousins leaving for Atlanta. Kevin in interviews seems to be intrigued by the idea of reviving Sam Darnold's career, which, to be fair, Sam Darnold would have been the best quarterback on the team last season after Kirk went down. So there's at least a little bit of reason to be excited about Sam from that point of view.
It's over. We are screwed.
The big question mark is who we are going to be drafting in this upcoming draft. This ultimately is a Kwesi decision, but Kevin is going to have a major role in picking the guy. I mean, even Justin Jefferson is involved in this decision. If they make the right call here, they will be set up very nicely for the future, and if they get it wrong, they might be out of a job, unfortunately. So to say the stakes for this offseason are massive for Kwesi and Kevin is a bit of an understatement. With the Vikings not spending $50 million a year on a quarterback, they have the money to spend on defensive pieces, which they have already done, and getting a good running back in the process as well. The pieces are there for Kevin in year 3. Now it's just a matter of who they get at quarterback in the draft, and will they be the right guy for this offense? Well, we will see.
All right, but what we learned today is regardless of circumstance, the Minnesota Vikings push onward.
Well, there you have it. Kevin O'Connell's first 2 seasons as a head coach. The dichotomy of polar opposite seasons, to say the least. Both with insane storylines that were both good and bad throughout. It's actually unbelievable how insane his first 2 seasons have been as a head coach, with some wild roller coaster of emotions throughout. Whether you have or have not enjoyed Kevin as a coach, he has provided some damn good entertainment, whether it's his doing or not. We will see what kind of fun stuff Kevin has planned for us in year 3. I cannot wait. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel out a ton. Again, I am so appreciative for all the support I've received in such a short time here. It is truly humbling, and I don't take it for granted. So until next time, you stay nice, Minnesota. I'll see you in the next one.